this morning I'm in Greenfield, Indiana, and I'm actually standing in Depot Street Park, which is really very new. This is kind of the first summer that a whole lot's really gonna be happening out here. So right behind me, we've got the amphitheater, and then have a lawn, and the Depot restaurant is right here, just off to my right. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about why I would live in a place like this, why I would live in Greenfield, Indiana. So stay tuned. Hey everyone, I'm Jason Compton with the Compton Home Group. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in a place like Greenfield, Indiana, or of course, Indianapolis, Indiana, or any of the cities and towns that surround Indianapolis, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and also tap the little bell so you're notified every time we do a new video. Now, we have people reaching out to us from all over the country with questions about places like Greenfield, Indiana, or Indianapolis, Indiana, Greenwood, Indiana, or Carmel, Indiana, places like that, cities and towns that surround Indianapolis. So if you have questions about any of those places at all, or Indianapolis itself, then make sure you reach out any way that you know how. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move to the Indy Metro. All right, again, guys, I'm in Greenfield, Indiana, and right there at the beginning of the video, I was in Depot Street Park, which I've kind of walked a little further to the west, and walking into the sun here, it is a super sunny, absolutely beautiful morning. It's 65 degrees, maybe almost 70. It's just absolutely perfect out here. A little breeze blowing. And what I'm walking along right now through Greenfield is the Pennsy Trail. And the Pennsy Trail is a pretty long trail. You can get quite a few miles of running or cycling, stuff like that. In fact, there have been a few people going up and down this trail this morning. And eventually this will have a continuous chain all the way into Indianapolis. And it does that now, but at some point here to the west, this trail will stop and you would have to find the extra trailhead, which is way over on 600, which is Mount Comfort Road, and pick the trail back up there. So it's broken up into little segments, and if you go further east here on the Pennsy Trail, you can go a pretty good long ways, but it does have segments. But eventually, this is gonna be part of the National Road Heritage Trail, and it'll extend well into Indianapolis and go way east Greenfield. In fact, there's plans for it really to kind of traverse the state. So that is down the road, but this Pennsy Trail does go right through downtown Greenfield and right through this brand new Depot Street Park. Depot Street is just off to my north here. It's a little brick street, very, very old. And then coming up here into this park, there's an old grain elevator that has been turned into the Depot restaurant, which is actually super, super cool. It's kind of hard to look at it right now because of the sun, but big, huge building, historic building, just, yeah, an old grain elevator turned into a restaurant. So these are some pretty nice improvements to the downtown Greenfield area. And all of this stuff wasn't here all that long ago as far as the improvements are concerned. And it was really just this first year. This year is the first year for a lot of this stuff to put in. So I want to talk in this video about Greenfield and why I would live in Greenfield. Now, funny thing is that I do live in Greenfield, and my family, we all live in Greenfield. And we've been here for nearly 3 years at the time this video is being made. And honestly, before we moved here, I knew Greenfield existed, and I've been to Greenfield many times, and I've been to the area here in Hancock County many times. I've seen homes, had clients out here, but it hadn't been the majority of where I'd spent my time and done any kind of business, but it was some. We lived in Fishers for a very long time, for 16 years, in fact. So I love Fishers. It is a fantastic city to live in. There's a lot to do there. It's very safe. It's relatively affordable whenever you compare it to places across the country. And it's of course one of the more expensive places I think to live now in the Indy Metro, but still reasonable. Lived there for a long time, and believe me, my first house there was not huge. About 1,500 square feet. Got it, I think, for $130,000, right in that range, years ago. Now the prices have definitely gone up. It's become more expensive, but it used to be more affordable than that for sure. But we lived in Fishers for a very long time, and I would move back to Fishers without a doubt. Fishers is a great place to live. But we moved out here to Greenfield, and it definitely wasn't on any of our radar, but my wife works out in this area. And so when she was working here and having to go back to Fishers, now it's not a terribly long drive to Fishers. Depends on where you are in Fishers, but it could take from where I'm standing close to State Road 9 here in Depot Street Park, it could take you 40 minutes to get there. And that's just because of the sheer distance you'd have to travel. And so if it took 40 minutes on a good day, no traffic at all, she'd have to leave pretty early to be at work by 7 or 7:30. And then if she were to leave at 5 or 5:30, you got a 40-minute commute. And if there's any traffic, it could delay another 5-10 minutes. You know, now you're starting to push 50 minutes or so, and sometimes if it was really bad, it could be a little bit longer than that. So it was crushing our day to day. So if she left at 5:30, she wouldn't get home until likely 6:30. If she left at 6, which happens sometimes in the evenings, wouldn't get home until 6:45 or so. And we had some young kids. So we didn't want that kind of lifestyle. It felt very, very fast, very consumed driving, and the time that it took, of course. So we said, let's just go ahead, move ourselves out closer to where you work. That way you're just less than 10 minutes from work. And for me, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm in Avon some days, I'm in Plainfield some days, I'm in Greenwood some days, I'm in downtown Indianapolis some days, I'm on the north side of Indianapolis some days, on the west side, I'm in Carmel some days, or Westfield some days. I'm on the outskirts of all of those cities a lot of times as well. So for me, it just doesn't matter really where I'm driving from. Someplace really central might work, like central Indianapolis. That way I'm not really close to anything, but I'm not that far from anything either. But that wasn't gonna work for the family. So we decided to move out here. And I have to say, after being here for nearly the 3 years, it was a really good decision for us. And I think that even if we didn't have to move to Greenfield and we wanted to move into a different city around Indianapolis, I think Greenfield would now be on the radar, knowing what I know about it now. Now, Greenfield is definitely not a flashy city. It's not a super busy city. It's roughly 25,000 people or so, at maybe 26,000, and it is steadily growing because this county that Greenfield is in is one of the fastest growing areas in the entire metro. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Number one is that there's room out here to grow. Plus you've got I-70 going straight through, so a nice big interstate, which in fact is being widened as we speak. There's a new exit. You actually have an exit at Mount Comfort east of Indianapolis, and then you've got another exit, State Road 9, which is really the official Greenfield exit, but there's one being put in between because Indianapolis has spread out to the east and Greenfield is kind of expanding back that direction as well to fill in that gap. So adding another exit. So there is quite a bit going on in Greenfield, and there's more than certainly what there was, I would say 10 to 15 years ago, without a doubt. So it's growing fast, but it's still not a super busy city. And really the main thing that I like about Greenfield, and Greenfield, it's not the only city or the only town that you're gonna have around Indianapolis that will likely have this kind of feel when you're living in it. I just like the fact that it seems very easy to live here. So we have noticed that we are spending a lot more time at home, on the weekends especially, or in the evenings. Now, of course, our kids are involved in things, in sports and activities, and so we do the typical running that parents do. And honestly, we enjoy that quite a bit. But when nothing else is going on, we tend to find ourselves at home a lot. When we were in Fishers, and even before kids, while we were in Fishers, Fishers, again, is fantastic. I'm not beating up Fishers at all, but it is more dense, certainly more crowded, and it just has a busier feel, just like any city with 100,000 people is gonna feel. And not just 100,000 isolated in a rural part of a state. Fishers is right there next to Carmel, which is quite large, over 100,000 people, and it's right next to Indianapolis, which is over 900,000 people. And then you have Noblesville to the north, which is 65,000. You got Westfield to the north as well, so there's about 50,000 people. There's a lot going on in that area. So you get more traffic, even though the traffic's not bad, but more density, more cars, more people, and it feels busier. But the advantage of that is that you're right next to basically anything that you're ever going to need. So the one thing I'd say I do miss, because we actually don't live right in the city of Greenfield, we're a little bit more on the outskirts, is that if we have to go to the grocery store, well, we gotta drive maybe 10 or 15 minutes to get to it. Now that's not ridiculous, but it definitely puts a pause on, do I really need that? Because when we were in Fishers, we were literally about 5 minutes to a grocery store. We would in fact sometimes be on a run and run past the grocery store on our way back because it'd only take us maybe 10 minutes to run to that grocery store and then pick up what we needed and then run back. So we actually did that multiple times and ridden the bike there, all of that, which actually is kind of nice and very attractive. And a lot of people like to do that kind of thing. And you might have that opportunity in a place like Fishers or Carmel or Greenwood on the south side. You might, you don't always, it depends on where the house is located. But when you're in Greenfield and you still have a Greenfield address, but you're starting to get out of the more dense part of Greenfield and it becomes, I wouldn't call it rural, but a little more rural. It certainly doesn't, when you're driving through, feel like suburbia. It feels not quite like you're out in the middle of nowhere. It's a mix in between, and I've really found that I like that. And I don't want to be too far out where I've got to drive 30 minutes or something similar to that as far as the time goes to get to something that I need, but 10 to 15 minutes, that's not too bad. It does make you think before you come home, do I need to bring anything home? Because I really don't want to go back out again 10 or 15 minutes, even though it's not ridiculous, to get something. And being in that mix, I felt like has really calmed things. It's not like everything is calm and perfect and totally chillax all the time. It's not that way at all. But we have more of an opportunity to be like that. And spending a little bit more time at home has been a pretty positive thing, I think, for us, for our kids, and we have a chance just to not run around and just be. Now that may not be for everybody, and not everybody in the world is gonna notice something like that or feel like that's even a positive. But it's been a pretty big positive for us. So if you're looking for a place around Indianapolis that has that subtle mix between the two, Greenfield could be an option. Now, there are other cities and towns that you can get that feel as well. You definitely can get that in between. But this one on the east side of Indianapolis is a location that would work for you. It's something you should probably consider. So if you have questions at all about Greenfield or Indianapolis, of course, reach out any way that you know how. And until the next one, we'll see you later.